everyone. I'm Maria Shimkalin, the Vice Chair of Pennsylvania Film Industry Association. And we are very lucky today because we have a very special guest, Henry Bronchtein. And we're truly honored that you joined us because we have a lot to learn from you. And we have a number of great questions here that we would love for you to answer so that we can learn from your path. So, of course,
shoot away.
All right. So the first one is, of course, how did you get started?
Well, not complicated answer, complicated question. I went to film school. Mm-hmm. I was the head of stage crew in my high school. I was interested in theater. I was interested in film. It was Vietnam era. I wasn't interested in going to school really at all, but we were very rebellious, much like this period of time. And we disagreed with the government about a lot of things. I did. But I didn't want to go to the war. I was anti-Vietnam War. And so college was the answer for many people. And but I wasn't interested in any kind of a regimented job. I didn't, I wanted to do something that was creative, that was freeing. And looking through, at that time we had books, I discovered there were a couple of film schools. I was, I was kind of a movie buff. I was interested in Italian cinema, French cinema, good old American movies. I had a theater background, so it seemed like a good fit, and I went for it. I went to film school. I took a long time to get out of film school. My mother took ill during my sophomore year, so I struggled through my sophomore year and junior years. She passed away middle of my junior year. Finished my junior year kind of distracted from school. I spent a lot of time with my parents at the hospital and not as much time as one would normally in a film school dedicated to film. People in film school tend to throw themselves into the productions and spend all of their hours. And I worked on a couple of documentaries as a cameraman. I did one. Well, when I came back, I did one in my documentary in my senior year that related to my mother's illness. But I put my time in to try to learn the craft, but I was distracted. And after my junior year, before my senior year, I decided to take some time off. I took a year and a half off, a year off actually, and then that wasn't very productive time, sadly. I was, I think, dealing with the grief about my mother and stuff. And when I came back, I got a little bit more involved in narrative film than I had been before in documentaries. And I shot a narrative film for someone, and I got my degree, and then I moved on, and I got out of film school with the degree, but with not maybe as much experience as I might have garnered under different circumstances. And I started looking for a job. And I hit what many people hit coming out of film school, the inability to find work in the industry. Very difficult industry to break into. And I think many people experience this sense of desperation, and I had a feeling that I had missed opportunities already. I was all of 25 or 26 when I got out of film school, and I was sure my life was already over. I'd fucked it up completely. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I use those words here?
Okay.
Not a lot. So I was a little lost, and it took me quite a while to land a film job. I did many things. I lived in New York. I'd gone to New York University for film school. I drove a cab. I tended bar. I worked in a factory making boxes, die-cut box patterns. Just a lot of things to pay the rent. And eventually I got a job. I was sharing an apartment with a woman who was painting house painting apartments for people. And she was painting an apartment for a director. And that director, she said, oh, my roommate's, she found that he was a commercial director. She said, oh, my roommate is trying to get into that. And I got a job as a PA. From that, everything followed. Believe it or not, actually, I truly mean, I met people who hired me on other jobs. Those people hired me on other jobs. Those people recommended steps for me to do, and everything proceeded from that first job.
Yeah. It's interesting. This is the pattern that I see as I'm speaking to very well-established people like you are in the industry. And everybody says they met some mentor, some guide who was that first door, and then things followed. So it's definitely the world of connections, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'd met a mentor, but I did meet people who gave me opportunity, who let me work. And I moved from one situation to another fairly quickly. I did get some good advice. I have a good logistical mind still. I don't think I was very directed about what I would want to do in the industry. I think if I was to give advice to students now or filmmakers now, I would say, if you want to be a director, go for directing. Especially now, it's much more affordable to make your own projects. There's much more technology that's accessible to everyone. If you want to be a writer, I'd say write, no matter what, write every day. I moved into production because I always wanted to be a director. I think that was, I always wanted to express myself creatively, but I had a good mind for logistics. And it was suggested to me by one of the people who was helping me that I would make a very good assistant director, and that the Directors Guild had an apprenticeship program to become assistant directors, and that I should apply. And I applied and I got in. And that led me to being an assistant director, which led me to being a unit production manager and a line producer. And then I started to push fairly late in life, in my 40s or mid 40s, to become a director, to get opportunity to direct, like that.
Yeah. You've done a lot of different jobs on sets, UPM, producer, first AD, director. So favorite one, I assume, is directing?
Yes, I guess I have to say favorite one is directing. I like producing, and I like being able to approach producing from a creative mindset of what does this show need to do to be successful at what it wants to do, and how do I do that within a budget. But directing frees you up from some of the more mundane considerations, like where to park the trucks, and focuses you more, on how do I deal with this bad scene, or this actor, or this scene I don't understand, or this scene that's overwhelmingly complicated for the amount of time. And there's still both logistical and creative problems, but at least you have some creative in all of those decisions. Yeah. I have a book I would like to recommend to your students. May I do that?
Yeah, please.
This is Oliver Stone's book. It's called Chasing the Light. And if you really want to hear from someone who is very successful, creative, writer, director, and all of his tribulations on the road, I highly suggest you read this book. You will see what I believe to be true in all instances, that people who are a success have tremendous amounts of failure in their life. No one succeeds without failure. Everyone suffers through life, and everyone has their own shortcomings and doubts, and that often, success is about finding the courage to overcome your fears and your failures.
Yeah, thank you. That was inspiring, because a lot of aspiring filmmakers are going through a lot of failures, and
we're all going to go through hell. Sorry, there's no easy way out.
Yeah, but it's good to
At one point or another, everyone will be humbled. I assure you.
Thank you. You've mentioned transitioning from producer to director. Was that challenging to delegate tasks that you used to be doing on set to someone else to just concentrate?
Very difficult.
Okay.
Very difficult. All of those chores, all of those producerial tasks are very much second nature to me. I had been in production for maybe at least 15, maybe 18 years when I first directed. And it was hard to get out of that mindset. It was helpful to understanding and planning how to do the work within a schedule, to understand time flow and how quickly you had to move and how you had to cover all of your preparatory tasks within the day, the shooting day, the rehearsal, the blocking, the moving from scene to scene, how you had to plan efficiently. It was helpful in understanding. I had seen a lot of set life by that point in my life. I'd seen a lot of directors. I understood the parts about having a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. But sometimes the difficult part would be putting all of that out of my mind and saying, oh, the scene's not working, I need to keep going. Mm-hmm. That was difficult. That was a frustrating pressure for me. Mm-hmm. Very difficult.
Yeah. Why are directors changing so often on TV shows? And does it affect the actual style of the show?
Oh, boy. That's a complicated question. I mean, there's complicated reasons that I'm sure I fully understand all the forces, but so the showrunner is sort of by default the main creative force because the writing is what gives consistency to the character. Mm-hmm. You know, the writer, the showrunner, and the lead actor, they give consistency to the piece. And so the showrunner has a style of what is this show about in both theme and in look and everything. So, and the showrunner stays through the whole show. He's never leaves. Mm-hmm. But most shows don't have a director that's there all the time. There are some shows where they will have an executive producer director who may direct every other episode and stays a lot and is in the editing room a lot. But more often than not, the showrunner takes over in the editing room. They get a lot, year after doing that, they get a lot of experience. But directors tend to be more itinerant. They'll do maybe 3 episodes of a show a year, but you're leapfrogging. You're always prepping the next episode while you're shooting one. So it's not easy to do 2 in a row unless you prep 2 at a time, which some shows are now doing. But you need the prep time. The scripts are not always ready. So there's this leapfrog. So one director, then another director, and then yet another director, and then yet another director. Then maybe that first director comes back. So usually after a couple of years, shows have locked into 3 or 4 directors they like a lot who will do the majority of the shows that they have because the showrunner feels they understand the work. The work looks the way they want. They get the kind of coverage they want. Mm-hmm. They get the kind of camera moves they want. And they understand it's of a piece. Usually there's a pilot that has been done first. And the pilot is the template for what we want the show to look like and feel like. Often the showrunner has directed the pilot, but not always. But that's usually what the showrunner, again, will have conversations with the director about style, not just about the script, but about the style of photography. And the director of photography is a consistent member of the staff. So he knows what the lighting needs to be like. He knows the camera angles that are preferred. You know, so there's a lot of collaboration there as well.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. You mentioned explaining the scene to actors, but does it happen that they feel about the scene differently than what you envision? How does it work with these kind of clashes?
Well, I listen to them, and I try to examine if their feeling about the scene is valid. You know, we've had, by the time in television, which is where my directing experience is, you've had meetings about the scenes, you know, with the showrunner, the writer. What is each scene about? What's important here? Why is this happening? So you have a sense of kind of what your mission is. You have your own take on emotional levels. But if the actor has a problem, you have to look at it and see how it fits in and how you can fit it into the overall. Mm-hmm. You can't be dismissive, whatever you do. I would say that creates a very bad vein. You know, so sometimes I'll say, all right, let's try it that way, but I need to get to this point, you know. And these could be things that happen not only in performance, but just in the blocking. You know, you don't want just the two actors to stand directly still and have it be kind of you want some motion in the scene, because the dynamic, the motion builds up the tension. And if they're just standing there talking to you, so you need to motivate for the actor. Why would I move on this line? Why would I do this? Why would I go over there? So you need to, you know, you've thought through a lot of that beforehand. When you're blocking a scene in your mind, you don't just randomly have somebody move from A to B. You have a reason, whether it's he wants to think about the line, he needs to be careful, he's buying time, he walks over, he picks up a pen to think, he's taking time. You have to give him a reason for the direction if he doesn't follow it naturally. A lot of actors will just say, okay, you want me to go there, here, by this line, I'll figure out a reason. And they'll do it themselves. But if they fight you, you need to give them a reason. And if they continue to fight you, you need to continue to work through it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And, you know, sometimes you kill yourself at the end of the day, and then you get up the next day.
Yeah. And what makes you appreciate the actors' work on set and want to work with them again?
Well, I mean, actors are the magic potion, you know. Actors take words and make them reality. What makes you want to work again with any actor, what makes me love actors in general, is that they add emotional reality. You suddenly, something that has to affect the person, that's tragic news, that's going to change his direction in life, becomes visible in reality. It's not just words on the page. You see it happening in a human being. And actors do that. They take that and they translate that into genuine emotion, like that comes through. So, I mean, it's a fascinating and very moving phenomenon to observe as an audience member and as a director, to be involved with that person. And that's one of the most thrilling parts about theater and film and everything.
Yeah. And is there anything that aspiring actors who are starting out as maybe under 5 or day players, is there anything they can do to be remembered by the director?
I think I remember every actor I ever worked with. You know, all you want from an actor is the hard work, you know, the come in knowing you. As a director, you want them to know their lines when they come in, because that time is precious. And then you just want their honest effort. I mean, like I said, I don't really mind when an actor questions a scene, because it makes me examine and makes me see if I really understand why I want. And if I can give them a good answer, usually they're okay. You know, we all make mistakes. I've made mistakes about directions, and actors have been right, and I've insisted and do it another way, and actors have been wrong, and I've let them do things, and, you know, so, but that's part of life, you know.
Yeah. No, that's good to know, because a lot of aspiring actors are terrified when they finally made it to set. Are they allowed to ask questions? Are they allowed to express
Well,
their vision?
you know, if it's smaller role, you know, where there are no small roles, they say only small actors, but you kind of don't want to have a ton of questions about 3 lines, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Usually, you know, on those kind of roles, I'll say, let me see what you want to do first. Mm-hmm. And then I'll correct and adjust, you know, and I'll say, all right, we did one like that, but maybe he's not so forward, you know, maybe he has trepidation about it, but whatever. I'll direct him the way I see it and hope they make an adjustment, you know. Mm-hmm. And if an actors can make an adjustment, then you're in heaven, you know. And also it's good to let an actors, you know, I usually let the first rehearsal, on set, what I usually do is read the lines through once, then I give a sort of loose blocking. What if you started here? What if you started there? Let's see what you want to do. With a 2-actor scene, it's very easy to figure out your coverage as you go. If it's a lot of people in the scene, you might want to pre-plan your blocking more, so you want them to do what you want. But sometimes I like to see what the actors want to do, and then I give them suggestions if I think my blocking's better that I had in mind. I always come in with a blocking in mind. But sometimes when you let actors do what they want to do, they've also thought through their blocking and what they're going to do, and they can wow you. So I try to allow them that first pass at the rehearsal at least to just show me what they had in mind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You brought me to the question about scenes. When you do know that there is time pressure and that there is budget limitations, when do you know that, okay, it's time to stop? Because you try to reach perfection in that scene and try different ways and angles. And when do you know that's enough?
Well, you need to make the scene work. So if you feel the scene's not working, you need to work with the actors. You need to work with the blocking. You need to free it up. Hopefully you do more of that in the very beginning before you get going. And so hopefully you've had a chance and an opportunity to talk to the actors about scenes at the read-through that happens when you're still in pre-production, on the phone, still in pre-production. Maybe you get some particular scenes that you want to talk to the actor about, or the actor calls you with problems about scenes. You talk about that in advance. But when you get on the set, you know, I usually have an idea of the blocking I want to do, but I also try to listen to the cast. You know, in the beginning of the day, you know, they like to say it's all Gone with the Wind, and at the end of the day, it's all Dukes of Hazzard, you know. In the beginning of the day, you allow more time. So you try to schedule your bigger scenes, your more difficult scenes early in the day, so you have time to deal with them. And smaller scenes that are maybe expositional or you feel are short scenes that you can handle in 1 or 2 shots if you have to, try to keep those at the end of the day or before a move, you know, at the end of a series of scenes in one location and then a company move. So you try to time management your time within the day, and you're working with the assistant director and the production manager on the schedule about all those things, trying to leave yourself time for your more difficult scenes. But if it's not working, sometimes you have to keep going and you have to get behind. You have to be willing to get yourself behind to try to get something that works and feel like you could make it up someplace else. Mm-hmm. So you start looking at scenes later in the day and you say, I've got 3 hours for this. I can do this in 2 shots, so I can cut an hour out of that. I'll steal that hour. And sometimes if it's not working and you can't get it working, you do more coverage and you hope you can build it in the editing room. Hopefully, sometimes you can understand why it's not working, and you can resolve conflicts or problems in the blocking and with the actors in place, because you do understand the scene, and you hear why the actor is having a problem, and you talk to him. So let's say the actor has a problem of he wants to get to a person over there and he's trying to deal with somebody that's interfering. You understand his problem of wanting to get over there, but the thing that's happening over here has a very important plot point that the actor doesn't really want to deal with because it's unimportant to his main drive. He feels he would just leave the guy. So you have to say you have to say something to him. You have to get him to understand why he has to deal with it. From a script point, you have to get the exposition out. But from an acting point, you have to justify to this actor what he's going to do to deal with it. So you say, this guy's not going to leave you alone. And if you don't deal with his problem, he's going to keep bugging you and make your other problem worse over there. So pull him over to the side. And now you have to say this thing to him, this thing that the audience has to know for another reason, that this guy wants to know, but you don't really care about. You're going to say it to him once. Now the actor's saying it too fast. And so because for to be understood, because he wants to get out of there. And he's saying to you, well, I would say it fast. And so I would say something to the actor like, yes, I understand. You do want to say it fast. You want to get out of there. But if he doesn't understand you, he's going to grab you. So say it once, slowly, emphatically, so he gets it, and then you can move on. So now I get the actor to say this piece of exposition clearly, and I've solved his problem because he understands why he's stopping to do it. And then he moves on. But if you can't solve an actor's problem, it's going to throw him all off. So you need to work with problems as they arise. You need to look at, why is he having this problem? Why do I need to solve this problem? Why do we need this piece? Why is it here? And hopefully you've thought of this stuff beforehand. You can't anticipate every problem that's going to come up on the set. You can't anticipate the light. You're losing the light and you have to rush. You can't anticipate the actor problems. So you have to be fluid enough in your understanding of what you absolutely need to get and how to get it, and your time management is part of the problem. So, the answer to that question is you take all your years of experience and you mix them up and you pray to God that you do something well.
Yeah.
Or if you don't believe in God, you sacrifice a lamb during lunch or something.
How should it be handled when director and the screenwriter or showrunner, I would say, have a clash of visions?
Well, if you're a director in television and you have a clash of vision with the showrunner, if you're smart, you're going to do what the showrunner says, or you're not going to work again. Okay. You can have a conversation. You can discuss a certain scene, or question why, explain your problem with it. I think those kinds of conversations are encouraged and is part of the creative collaboration. But you really don't want to clash. You need to be part of the ensemble, and you need to understand that ultimately the showrunner is the producer, it is the creative force, and you've got to find a way to get in sync with them, ultimately.
What are some common challenges that happen on TV film sets, and how are those common challenges usually handled?
Common challenges?
Yeah, something that aspiring directors can be prepared for.
First of all, there's always a time pressure. There's never enough time. Schedules are tough, and there's always time pressure. So you need to be prepared. You need to move quickly. People are looking for the director to be prepared. You're under a lot because you're a guest, you're a visitor, you're not part of the staff. The whole crew is wanting you to move quickly. And like I said, so sometimes challenges come up, like when the scene's not working, people just want you to move on. You know, they don't want you to spend extra time. They don't want to see you struggling on the set. So they just want to go bang, 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 and keep moving. Yeah. So you need to, like I said, have some sense of the pieces that you need, and be able to decide when you can give up a piece and when you can't. It's very subjective. There's always personality issues, you know, and directors have to be very careful because they are a guest, and it's not something I've always been great at. You know, I'm not always very tolerant person about people's mistakes and things that cost time to me. So I would say always be diplomatic, always understand that people are human, people are going to make mistakes. You're going to pay the brunt of that mistake because you're going to lose time, and that's just part of the territory. Smile, grin, bear it, you know, make a joke, keep going. Yeah. I don't know, does that answer the question?
I mean, it does. I mean, time definitely does. That's definitely a challenge that everybody needs to be prepared.
People are challenging. You know, people are challenging.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I would say, you know, it's always a dynamic. You're working with 100 people on the set. You're working with actors. You're working with a costume designer. You're working with the DP. You're working with the production designer. You're trying to get something a certain way so that you can fulfill a vision. They have a different sense of the vision from the showrunner, or their own sense of vision, and you're a guest, and they may not want to do it your way, and they may be helping you, or they may be just resisting you, and you need to navigate those waters. You know, I would say wear a life vest.
Yeah, that would help. Are you present in the post-production process? How much are you involved in the editing?
Well, I've been lucky because mostly what I've directed are shows I've also been the producer on. So typically directors in television are kind of itinerant. They go from show to show. They shoot their 8, 10, 12 days, whatever it is for their episode. They get 4 days for a director's cut generally, and then they're gone. And then it goes to the showrunner to cut. You know, so the first thing that happens is there's an editor's cut for 3 or 4 days, an editor's assembly, then the director's cut for about 4 days, and then it goes to the producer's cut, which is the showrunner, that usually the head writer, the guy who created the series, and he gets a cut with the editor. So it's about usually the 3 days of the editor and the 4 days of the director's cut is what a director in television is going to get. As I say, I've been lucky because I've been attached to shows as a producer, so I stay, and I can, you know, if the editing on other episodes is behind, I might get extra time because the showrunner's not ready to look at it anyway, and I'll sneak into the editing room and I'll work with the editors some more. But it's not a lot of time. There's not a lot of time to delivery. It's not the luxurious, well, maybe it's not luxurious on a feature film because there's a lot of footage, but it's not as much time as on a feature film.
Mm-hmm. Do you think if one is going for a director, should they go through film school, or is SAT the best school?
You should have an education. Let's put it this way. I believe in understanding, like all the Greek classic tragedies and comedies, and, you know, and having a basis in Shakespeare. The same stories are told over and over. They help you have an idea of what the characters, you know, the classic conflicts are, emotional, inner life conflicts that have to be carried along through a plot. I think you need that basis. And I would emphasize to all people who want to be a director that it would be good to study those things, because the same stories are repeating over and over. These classics are classics for a reason. They've touched people over the eons of time now. They resonate with the human soul. And it would be good to be grounded in those. So I would definitely suggest, whether you study film or whether you study Greek tragedy or whether you study Shakespeare or Moliere, if you want to be in French, that you study the great dramaturgical works of all the times. Then, if you are a film buff, and like say a Martin Scorsese, where you just watch movies through the night, and you've seen movies that people have never heard of, and you can remember pieces. You're going to get an education in cinematic language. Again, I went through film school, but I outlined for you that I missed a lot of it because I didn't, for personal reasons, was not in a place to throw myself deeply into that. And I think that I got all of that later. You keep working. Film school is 4 or 5 years of my life. My career is 45 years long, so, I've gone back over that ground, but you got to get started. I did learn a lot in film school, enough so that when I got on a set, I was not a lost. So, I wasn't lost. I knew how things were moving. I'd, done enough work to understand who was doing what and the language. And so I think it can be helpful. I think it's overpriced. I think university in America in general is overpriced, summer camp for semi-adults. I think $70,000, $80,000 a year for university is absurd. 4 years. Debt is absurd. Debt that you can never work your way out of is absurd. And so I would say your students are all adults. They have to make those decisions themselves. They can look at what it's going to do to them financially and their families financially and make those decisions. It's not a bad thing. I learned a lot. I had a good time. I had, you get more socialization. Just like people are saying now about kids, they have to go to school for socialization. Film school is more socialization when you're closer to being an adult. Mm-hmm. It's more interaction. It's freedom away from your parents. Finally, I didn't go to summer camp, so those were my first years away from my parents. I think it has tremendous value in all of those ways, but not at the prices they were paying. I suggest everybody go to school in Europe or Canada, where it's much cheaper, or state schools if you can. Mm-hmm. I don't think, unless maybe the connections you make in Harvard and Yale are worth it. I don't know. I didn't go to that kind of school, so mm-hmm. I can't answer that question.
For filmmakers and aspiring directors especially, what are some ways to improve their craft and get some feedback if they're not in school?
Any position you're working on in a film, if you're paying attention, you're going to learn something. Mm-hmm. You learn the common language because, people, it's all kind of the same on one level. The other thing is to watch a lot of movies. Mm-hmm. And when something impresses you, like, wow, that blew me away, that scene, watch it again, then watch it again. There's lots of stuff available, Scorsese speaking, Werner Herzog speaking. You can find videos. YouTube has got a ton of shit, a ton of stuff that people can look at. You can read a lot. You can read about classic filmmakers and study the scenes, whole books about Alfred Hitchcock and Psycho and the editing and the music. Your education doesn't stop at the end of film school. If you're a filmmaker And you go to the movies all the time, and you talk with other people about scenes, and you think about how to shoot them and what they did and what you liked and what you didn't like. And, it's your craft. So you think about it, and, you observe what other people are doing, and you absorb it, and you evolve in your inner self. And you also evolve as an adult, through self-examination of your life, through examination of your relationships, looking at material that is about, what is this material about? I mean, we live in my opinion, unfortunately, in a time of comic book movies. That's where all the money is. But even those can be made great. They can have classic storylines if you want, and you can bring something to them that is, more than just action. So I don't know. I mean, introspection and study throughout your life, I guess, is my advice. And then boldness. You need to, at some point, you just need to do it. You need to do it. You need to fail. You need to do it again. You need to fail. You need to think you're never going to work again, figure it out, get up and get out going. I don't know anybody that hasn't thought their career is over at least once or twice along their career.
What do you think makes a powerful script, a script that will live for long, especially with television?
Well, we're in the golden age of television, as they say, platinum age of television. We are making higher production value. Cable and internet, streaming services have freed up television from the censor's clause. We're not restricted about what the bad guy can do, what the good guy can do, about people being punished for being bad. It's a lot more gray area, and gray is what's interesting. Black and white gets to be boring. Good guy, bad guy. People are both. Yeah. I think a good script is one that not only has strong plot, but more importantly has strong character, that the things that drive the plot are moral, ethical decisions of what will I do in my life, of the characters, and then the characters, lives spin on their decisions, and the story carries along, but what you're watching is what happens to the people. And that's what makes good scripts.
Yeah. Are there any lessons that you've learned along the way that you wish you learned earlier and now can say, guys, just do this?
Yes. I wish I'd learned to keep my mouth shut more, and I wish I'd learned not to do interviews like this.
See, now you learned something from me. I feel like I made a difference.
It's good to be outspoken. I think Winston Churchill said, if you haven't made any enemies in your life, you haven't done anything. So you need to be willing to speak your mind, but you need to know when is your place and when is not your place, when you can affect the difference, how to be charming. There's a lot of skills to being a director besides just understanding film. Yeah. I wish you all who want to be directors luck.
Thank you. We appreciate it, and we really appreciate your time. And you have a very inspiring path and fantastic work that you've done. I'm a big fan personally, so I'm very honored that you took time to speak to us. So thank you very much, everybody who's been watching. Henry, you're fantastic. We really appreciate you. And everybody, have a great day.